Table 7 needs their centerpiece adjusted. The floral arrangement is leaning left. Yes, ma'am. On it. And tell the kitchen we're pushing the entree service back 4 minutes. I want the speeches done before the food lands. Got it. I never thought the night I finally ran the most important event of my career would be the same night someone tried to take everything from me. Right there. In a room full of people who watched and did nothing. My name is Nikia. I'm 31 years old. I'm a hotel event coordinator at the Grand Meridian, one of the most prestigious venues in the city. I have a 9-year-old daughter named Nadia at home who thinks her mama hung the moon. And I have been working toward this moment, this exact night, for 3 years. The Aldridge Corporate Gala, 400 guests, a $250,000 budget. 6 weeks of my life poured into every detail. The lighting rigs, the seating arrangements, the menu pairings, the floral timeline, the AV transitions. Every single thing in that ballroom existed because I put it there, and it was perfect. The chandeliers caught the light exactly right. The string quartet was playing something soft and expensive sounding near the east entrance. Guests in formal wear moved through the space like they belonged there, because I made sure they felt like they did. That's my job. I make the room feel effortless. I make the invisible look inevitable. I had checked my earpiece twice, confirmed with my assistant that the keynote speaker was mic'd and ready, and was doing one final walk of the bar area when I noticed him. Table 12, corner seat. A man I hadn't seen arrive, which meant he'd come in while I was managing the stage setup, and that bothered me. I notice everything. It's the only way this job works. He was Korean, late 30s, wearing a midnight navy suit that fit the way expensive things fit when they're made specifically for you. Dark tie, dark hair, cut clean. He was sitting completely still with a glass of something clear in front of him that he hadn't touched. He wasn't talking to anyone. He wasn't looking at his phone. He was watching the room. Not the way guests watch a room. Curious, distracted, impressed. He was watching it the way you watch something you already understand. Like he was reading a report he'd already memorized. I noted him, filed him away, moved on. I had an event to run. That's when I saw Marcus Holt heading toward the bar for the 4th time in 90 minutes. I knew his type before I knew his name. Red-faced, loud in the way that money makes some men loud, like the room exists to absorb whatever he decides to put into it. His jacket was slightly rumpled now, his tie loosened. He was the kind of drunk that starts with arrogance and ends with something much worse. I moved to intercept him before he reached the bartender. Mr. Holt. I kept my voice even, professional. Can I get you something from the kitchen? We have the charcuterie coming out in about 10 minutes. I want a whiskey. He didn't look at me when he said it. I think you've had a great evening so far, and I'd love to keep it that way. Let me get you some water and... He turned then, looked at me for the first time, and I saw something shift in his face, the decision being made before I could finish my sentence. Did I ask for your opinion? Mr. Holt, I'm just... Get me a whiskey. Sir, I'm not able to do that. His hand moved fast. He grabbed the front of my collar with one fist. Before I could pull back, he slammed my face down into the display table behind the bar setup. The sound was everywhere. Crystal glasses shattering, a tray overturning, a sharp crack I felt in my teeth before I understood what had happened. My ears were ringing, the floor tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table trying to find my footing. When I finally lifted my head, I could taste blood on my lip. The room had gone, silent. Not quiet. Silent. The music stopped. The conversation stopped. 400 people in formal wear had turned to look at the corner where I was trying to hold myself upright. My vision was doing something I didn't have time for. Nobody moved. I looked out at that ballroom. All those faces turned toward me, and not a single person stepped forward. Phones were rising. People were recording. A woman near the front had her hand over her mouth. A man in a gray suit looked away. They just watched. I've spent 3 years in this building being invisible so that events like this one could feel seamless. Now I was visible. Bleeding, the display table wrecked around me, my blazer torn at the shoulder. And not one person in that room decided it was their problem. They never do. And then I saw him, the man from table 12, still seated, still completely still. He was looking directly at me across the ballroom, past the crowd, past the chaos, past every person who had chosen to do nothing. His expression hadn't changed, but then, slowly, deliberately, he reached up with one hand and straightened his tie. If you are watching this right now, wherever you are in the world, I need you to stay with me. Because what happened in that room next wasn't chaos. It wasn't a scene. It was something I didn't have a word for until much later. It was surgical. Subscribe to see how this unfolds, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you, just to know how far our story is going. He didn't rush. That's what I remember most clearly, even now. The man from table 12 stood up from his chair the way you stand when you've finished a meal. Unhurried. Decided. Like he'd already calculated the distance and found it manageable. I noticed his bodyguard first. The broad-shouldered man in the black suit who'd been standing near the east wall all evening. He was no longer near the east wall. He'd moved directly behind Marcus without Marcus registering a single step. He was simply there now, close enough that Marcus's next move belonged to someone else's decision. And the man in the midnight navy suit kept walking, not angry, not performing, just walking the way you walk through a room you own, at a pace that said nothing here has ever been outside my control, and tonight is not the beginning of an exception. He stopped in front of Marcus, looked at me once, one full second, just to confirm I was upright. Then he turned to Marcus like I had been checked off a list. 4 words. Leave the building now. Quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't need volume because the room has already learned to listen. Marcus heard it. I watched something move across his face, then his ego caught up and closed it off. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. Then he reached out and grabbed the lapel of that midnight navy suit. What happened next was fast, not frantic, efficient. A shift of weight. A specific angle applied to a specific joint. The sound Marcus made was not a shout. It was the sound of a man whose body has just been informed, clearly and precisely, that it has lost an argument. His shoulder went the wrong direction. His knees buckled. The bodyguard caught him, didn't let him fall, just repositioned him, guided him upright, then toward the side of the room. Toward a door I knew led to a service corridor and then a side exit. Through the side, not the front, not past the guests. Quietly, like a scheduling conflict being resolved by competent staff. Marcus was gone in under a minute. The man in the midnight navy suit straightened his tie. Then he turned and walked back to table 12, sat down, picked up his untouched glass, looked at the room once, briefly, and the room, all 400 people in it, exhaled and remembered they had conversations to return to and evenings to continue existing inside of. A server appeared beside me, young, nervous, holding a white cloth napkin folded around something cold. He set it on the table next to my hand without making eye contact. "From a guest," he said, and then he was gone. No name, no note. Just ice wrapped in linen, left like a period at the end of a sentence. I pressed it to my lip and looked across the room at table 12. Young Yu was looking at the stage. He didn't look back at me. 3 members of hotel management arrived within 4 minutes. They went directly to the side corridor. Not one of them came to the bar area. Not one came to check on me. I stood there with a cloth napkin against my face and watched the general manager power walk past without breaking stride, talking into his phone with the specific energy of a man calculating what something is going to cost him. I understood then. Before anyone said a word to me, I understood exactly what the rest of this was going to look like. I held it together until the bathroom, both hands on the porcelain sink, the overhead light buzzing faintly above me. I looked at my face in the mirror and ran the quiet, internal diagnostic you run when you need to know what you're actually dealing with before you let yourself feel it. Split lip. Bruise forming high on my left cheekbone, my blazer torn at the shoulder seam. My earpiece was gone. I didn't remember losing it. I called my mother. I kept my voice completely steady the entire call. You can be falling apart and your voice will stay level if you've had enough practice at it. I told her I'd had a long night, that I needed her to stay over with Nadia, that I'd explain in the morning. She asked if I was okay. I said yes. She didn't believe me, but she knew pushing me before I was ready was a door that didn't open from the outside. She told me she loved me. I told her I'd be home soon. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 40 minutes before I could make myself start the engine, hands in my lap, staring at the concrete column in front of me. The garage smelled like oil and cold air and the particular stillness of a space where nothing moves. I went through the event timeline the way I always do after a close, identifying what worked, what didn't, what I'd adjust. It was the only thing that felt familiar. The only thing that felt like something I controlled. The keynote had landed well. The lighting transitions had been seamless. The kitchen had executed perfectly. The event coordinator had been assaulted at the bar area in front of 400 people, and nobody had moved. I started the engine and drove home, but the hotel wasn't done with me yet. HR called at 8:47 the next morning, before I'd finished my coffee. Before Nadia had finished her breakfast, the woman who called introduced herself as the deputy HR director and spoke with the careful, modulated tone of someone trained to make damage control sound like compassion. She used the phrase, "the incident at the Aldridge event," twice without ever specifying what the incident was. She asked if I could come in to provide a written statement at my earliest convenience, said, "We take matters like this very seriously." In the same breath that she mentioned Marcus Holt's company was an important partner of the hotel. She didn't ask if I was okay. Not once. I told her I'd be in at 10. Hung up. Finished my coffee. Dropped Nadia at school. Danielle found me at my desk before I'd even opened my laptop. She sat down across from me and put both hands flat on the desk like she needed something to hold on to. Her eyes were red at the edges. She'd been carrying this since last night. "I saw everything," she said. "I want you to know that." "I know you did." "I should have." "Danielle." I looked at her. "I know." She swallowed. "The Korean man. Do you know who he was?" "He told the server his name was Yang Yu." Her expression shifted into something I couldn't read. I filed it away. I filed everything. I submitted my statement at 10, answered every question directly, described exactly what Marcus Holt had done, exactly what I was doing when he did it, exactly who had intervened when the hotel's 400 guests chose to document rather than act. The deputy HR director thanked me for my time. I went back to my desk with the bruise still visible on my face. Here is what she did not know about institutions like that one. The more carefully they move after an incident, the more certain they already are about what they plan to do. By Thursday, I'd started noticing things. The HR director's office was dark, blinds drawn, chair pushed in at an angle that said nobody had sat in it recently. A coworker mentioned he was on administrative leave, with the careful blankness people use when they know more than they're saying. The general manager walked past me in the corridor Thursday afternoon and made eye contact for the first time since the gala. He nodded. A quick, specific nod. Less greeting, more acknowledgement. Like he was marking something off. Something was happening. I couldn't see the shape of it, but I could feel the edges. What I didn't know, what I had no way of knowing, was that a review had been initiated the morning after the gala. A legal team was pulling financial records and management structures. Those structures traced the hotel's ownership back through a holding company, and that holding company traced back to a man who had been sitting at table 12 watching my event run perfectly until it didn't. I didn't know any of it. I just noticed that the HR director's office was dark, and the general manager's nod carried something apologetic. I filed those things away. I waited. The formal letter arrived by courier on a Friday, hotel letterhead, signed by the general manager. It expressed deep regret for the experience I had endured, affirmed the hotel's commitment to staff safety, and confirmed the guest in question had been permanently banned from all hotel properties. It was well written, thorough, reviewed by at least 2 lawyers before printing. I set it on my desk. Then came the second letter. This one was an internal memo about my account portfolio. Effective the first of the following month, I would be transitioning off high-visibility events and into what they called foundational programming, small board dinners, corporate retreats, the kind of events nobody ever remembered, the kind of rooms where nothing I did would be visible to anyone who mattered. They were making me smaller. I understood it immediately. Marcus Holt had assaulted me in front of 400 witnesses, and the hotel's answer, once the dust settled, was to contain me. If I wasn't in high-profile rooms, there was less chance of another incident, less liability, less exposure. They weren't protecting me, they were protecting themselves from me. I submitted a formal complaint to HR that afternoon. 4 pages, single-spaced, dates, names, the assault, the aftermath, the settlement offer, the portfolio memo, and its timing. No anger in the language. Anger gives people something to dismiss. HR acknowledged receipt within the hour. Automated. A human followed up 3 days later to say the matter was under review. 10 to 15 business days. 3 weeks. 3 weeks is a long time to be small. The call came to my personal phone on a Tuesday evening, a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. "I'd like to meet," Yang Yu said. "Not at the hotel." The kitchen behind me smelled like the rice I'd left on the stove. Nadia's backpack was on the chair by the door, one strap undone. The TV was on low in the living room. Everything ordinary. Everything still. "How did you get this number?" I asked. "I have access to resources that make certain things findable." A pause. "I'm not going to apologize for that, but I am going to tell you why I called." "All right. I know what they're doing to you." He chose a restaurant with no sign visible from the street. You had to know to look for the door. I found it and almost walked past it. A man at the entrance knew his name without being told. We were seated in a corner booth before I'd finished taking off my coat. The room was low lit, small, 2 candles on the table. The walls were dark wood and the whole place smelled like cedar and something warm underneath. It felt like a room built for conversations that mattered. I was wary. I want to be honest about that. Whatever Yang Yu was, and I still didn't have a clean answer to that question, he'd obtained my personal phone number through means I hadn't given him. I'd come anyway. I knew why. And I wasn't ready to examine that reason yet. He didn't make me wait. "The hotel received a complaint 6 months ago," he said once we were alone. "A member of their event staff. Marcus Holt made physical contact with her during a conference setup. She reported it formally. The HR director reviewed the complaint and declined to act. The file was flagged as resolved." I looked at him. Resolved. That's the word they used. I thought about the deputy HR director's phone call, her careful, modulated voice. "We take matters like this very seriously." Who was the other employee? A woman named Priya. She left the hotel 4 months ago. He said it simply. Just the fact, placed where I could see it. She cited a hostile work environment in her exit interview. That documentation was also filed without action. The restaurant was quiet around us. The candle between us flickered once and steadied. "The HR director," I said, No longer employed by the hotel, as of 10 days ago, and Marcus Holt's company. Contract terminated, effective immediately following my review of the incident report. He said it the way he said most things, without performance, without waiting for a reaction. His company did significant annual business with the hotel. That relationship is finished. I sat with that, let it settle. You did all of this, I said. My legal team facilitated it. I provided the direction. Why? He met my eyes, didn't look away. Because what happened to you was wrong, and what came after was worse. A small settlement to silence you, restructuring your portfolio to reduce their exposure. That's not an institution responding to harm. That's an institution protecting itself at your expense. He paused. I wasn't going to watch that happen. You watched an entire ballroom do nothing, I said. Before you moved. I moved. After a moment. Yes. He didn't flinch. After a moment. I won't pretend otherwise. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite guilt, but honest. I've spent a significant portion of my life learning when to move and when not to. That night, I moved too slowly. I think about that. I hadn't expected that. The admission, offered without prompting, without cushioning. I moved past it the way I always do when something catches me off guard. The settlement offer, I said. Decline it. He reached into his jacket and set a card on the table. Not his own this time, someone else's. She's a good attorney. She knows employment law well and she owes me a favor, which means her rate for you will be manageable. Submit an amended complaint citing the buried prior report and Priya's exit documentation. Both are now accessible to you through her. I looked at the card, then at him. You planned this entire meeting. I prepared for it. There's a difference. I almost smiled. Almost. What do you get out of this? Nothing, he said. Flat, immediate. No beat of calculation before it. That's what made it feel true. Most people pause before they say nothing because they're deciding whether nothing is the right thing to say. He just knew. I picked up the attorney's card, put it in my bag next to his. We stayed at the table for another hour. The food arrived. Each plate. Intentional, quiet in its elegance. The conversation found other things to move into the way it does when both people have stopped being careful and haven't registered the shift yet. He asked about the events work, not out of politeness, but with the specific curiosity of someone who actually wanted to understand how something functioned. I told him about the Aldridge Gala, the 6 weeks, the vendor coordination, the way you build a timeline that accounts for every variable you can anticipate while staying flexible enough to absorb the ones you can't. He listened the way he did everything, completely, without the performative nods people use when they're waiting for you to finish. That's when I made my mistake. Or rather, that's when I said the thing I should have waited longer to say. You recommended me for that account, I said. 8 months ago, through back channels. He went very still. Who told you that? Nobody told me. I worked it out. I looked at him, steadily. The account came to me without explanation. The GM seemed surprised when I asked about it. I filed it away. After our first meeting, I pulled the thread. I paused. Was I right? He considered it briefly. Then, yes. Why? Because I'd read the reviews from every event you'd personally coordinated over the prior 2 years, he said. The feedback was consistent, exceptional, across formats, across budgets, across client types. You're the best event coordinator in that building, probably in this city. And you'd been managing mid-tier accounts for 3 years while people with a fraction of your ability were given the flagship work. He said it the way he said everything else, like it was simply factual. That was a waste, so I corrected it. I held his gaze. Something was moving through me that I needed to keep very still. You should have told me, I said. I know. I spent 8 months thinking I'd finally broken through on my own. You had, he said. The account was yours because of your record. I only ensured the right people were looking at it. Everything you did with it was entirely yours. A pause. But you're right that I should have told you. I didn't, because I didn't want you wondering whether my attention was something you'd earned or something I'd decided to give you. I wanted the work to speak first. And now? Now I'm telling you. He held my gaze. I didn't want you to earn my attention, Nikia. I wanted you to know you had always deserved it. I looked at the table for exactly 1 second. Then I looked back at him, kept my voice level, said, "Thank you for dinner," and stood up. I had approximately 90 seconds of composure left. I used them to get to my car. I sat in the parking lot and let it out slowly, not crying. The particular release of a person who has been told, for the first time in a long time, that someone was paying attention before they were needed, not after the crisis, not because of the crisis. 8 months before it, quietly, without announcement, without expecting anything back. I sat there for 20 minutes, felt something shift in me that I didn't have a name for yet. Then I drove home, checked on Nadia, and didn't sleep well for reasons I refused to examine. He didn't make grand gestures. I want to be clear about that because it matters. What followed over the next weeks wasn't orchestrated to overwhelm me. There was no single designed moment. He simply began appearing at the edges of my life. Small, consistent. The kind of attention that's harder to dismiss than flowers, because it requires, actually, listening. A message asking how the amended complaint was progressing. A vendor recommendation for something I'd mentioned struggling with for an upcoming booking. Not pushy, just, this person is reliable, if you're still looking. A follow-up about a documentary I'd mentioned. Had I seen the second episode yet? Small things. Consistent things. The kind of attention that accumulates. Nadia had mentioned, through me, without knowing she was doing it, that she'd exhausted every book in her favorite historical fiction series at the library. 3 days later, a package arrived at my apartment. Addressed to her in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside were the next 4 books in the series, plus 2 related titles the note described as similar in period and tone, if she's interested. The note was signed with one initial. Why? Nadia held the package and looked at me with an expression I couldn't fully decode. Then she carried the books to her room. I heard her shelving them carefully, the way she shelves things she considers important. I did not call him to say thank you, but I thought about it more than once. The parent-teacher conference was on a Thursday in late November. I mentioned it to Yang Yu the week before, not as an invitation, just in the context of scheduling. My mother had planned to come with me, but had a conflict. I went alone. That was fine. I'd gone alone before. I was sitting in the hallway outside Nadia's classroom, the fluorescent light humming above me, Nadia's reading assessment in my hands, when I heard footsteps that weren't a parent's. Young Yu was wearing a dark coat over gray. He found me by sight, walked over and sat down in the small chair beside mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. His coat was slightly damp at the shoulders. It had started raining outside. He hadn't mentioned he was coming. You didn't have to come, I said. I know. He looked at the reading assessment in my hands. How are her numbers? I showed him the sheet. He studied it with more seriousness than I expected. Asked a question about the comprehension section that told me he'd actually looked into what these assessments measured. We talked about Nadia until Ms. Okafor opened the classroom door and called my name. He came in with me. Ms. Okafor glanced at him once and addressed us both with the practiced neutrality of a teacher who'd learned not to make assumptions about family configurations. He sat beside me, listened without interruption. Near the end, he asked one question about how Nadia managed transitions between subjects. Ms. Okafor paused, then said it was a very perceptive question. We came out into the hall and the school was quiet. The rain had picked up outside. You could hear it against the windows at the end of the corridor, steady and close. Neither of us said anything for a moment. He didn't need to. The meeting with Nadia happened on a Saturday. I told her in advance. She deserved to know. He's a man I know from work, I said while she ate her breakfast. He helped me after what happened at the event. He's been a good person. He'd like to meet you. Nadia considered this with the thoroughness she brought to everything that mattered. Is he the one who sent the books? Yes. The Y on the note? Yes. She chewed her toast. Her eyes were steady on mine. Okay, she said, and went back to eating. We met at the cafe 3 blocks from our apartment. Her choosing, which she had specified without being asked. Nadia was in orange. She had her library book. She didn't reach for it when he sat down across from us. She looked at him instead. Not rude, just full attention. She studied his face, his hands, the way he held himself, the way he looked at me. I watched her do it and kept my own expression still. He didn't rush her, didn't perform warmth, didn't use the slightly too bright energy adults use with children when they're trying to signal they're safe. He just waited. And when she was ready, he met her eyes. You're the one who helped my mom, she said. Not a question. I am, he said. She nodded slowly. I saw your picture in the newspaper. I know. Something in his expression shifted. Your mother told me? She didn't know I took it. She does now, I said. Nadia looked at me briefly, then back at him. Are you going to keep helping her? He held her gaze without moving. Yes, for as long as she'll let me. Nadia sat with that, turned it over, filed it in whatever internal system a 9-year-old uses to decide who matters. Then she opened her library book, pulled out a worksheet tucked between the pages that I hadn't known was there, and started working on it. The conversation was over. The decision had been made. Those were 2 different things, and she understood the distinction. Yang Yu looked at me across the table. I looked back at him. Neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. The restaurant was closed to the public that evening. I didn't know until we arrived. 1 table set near the window. 2 candles. No menus. The server appeared and disappeared with the timing of someone briefed on exactly when not to be present. The room smelled like rosemary and warm bread and something darker underneath. Expensive wood. Old walls. We ate slowly, talked about things that had nothing to do with the hotel. He told me something small about his childhood, learning to read Korean from his grandmother in a kitchen that smelled like sesame in winter. He offered it like a decision he'd just made. I told him about Nadia's father. Not everything. Enough. A man who found my self-sufficiency attractive until it inconvenienced him. Yang Yu listened without offering a counter-narrative or an absolution. Just received it. After the plates were cleared, he was quiet. I need to say something, he said, and I need to say it clearly. All right. I've been trying to keep appropriate distance since the night of the gala. He looked at me steadily. I was aware you were in a vulnerable position. I didn't want to be something that happened to you while you were already dealing with something else. And now? Now I'm not willing to keep doing that. He didn't look away. I'm not asking for something casual. I'm not interested in seeing what happens over the next few months and reassessing. I don't operate that way. I don't think you do either. No, I said. I don't. My world is complicated. No apology in it. I have significant resources and I've used some of them in ways that exist in a gray area. I have real enemies. People who would use someone close to me to access me if they thought it would work. Being in my life carries genuine risk. I'm not going to minimize that. You deserve to know it now, before you decide anything. The candle between us threw warm light across the table. Outside the window, the city moved at its evening pace, entirely indifferent, entirely unaware. You're the first person, I said, who has ever told me the truth about a risk before asking me to take it. He waited. Most people present the version they think you'll accept, I said. And then the real version arrives later, and you realize you made a decision based on incomplete information. I looked at him. You just handed me everything up front. That means more than you know. I know what it means, he said quietly. That's why I did it. I took a breath. Let it out. I'm not afraid of your world, Yang Yu. I've been managing risk in mine alone for years. At least in yours, I'd apparently have some backup. I held his gaze. I choose this. Whatever this is, I choose it. Something moved across his face. Not dramatic. Not overwhelming. Real. Like something held carefully for a long time had just been set down. He reached across the table and took both my hands in his. His hands were warm. His grip was deliberate without being tight. The grip of someone who understood the difference between holding and restraining. You're mine to protect now, he said. And I don't take that lightly. I know you don't, I said. That's the only reason this works. 3 months is not a long time. I want to be honest about that. It's 12 weeks, 90 days, 1 season, turning into the next. It's not enough time to know everything about a person, but it's enough time to know what something feels like. And this felt like, finally, after a long time, something solid, not perfect, not uncomplicated. Solid. The senior event director role was posted internally in January. New position, newly created. Above anything on the existing org chart in the events department. Full budget authority, full account selection, direct report to the hotel's ownership group. I read the posting twice, flagged 3 things I wanted to negotiate, and applied before the end of the business day. Yang Yu had told me about it 4 days before it was posted. He'd told me what he knew. The scope, the structure, the fact that it existed partly because of what the legal review had revealed about the department's failures. He did not tell me to apply, did not tell me what to ask for, did not offer to intervene. He gave me information and stepped back. I negotiated the salary myself, the account scope, the reporting line, the travel clause. The general manager sat across from me with the look of a man who'd received instruction from above to give me what I asked for, but hadn't been told exactly how much I would ask for. I asked for everything I thought was fair and worth fighting for. I got most of it. I called Yang Yu when I left that meeting and told him the outcome. You didn't need me in that room, he said. No, I said. I didn't. Good. That was all. But the way he said it, quiet, with something I recognized now as pride, settled into me like something that had been waiting for exactly that spot. Nadia started Korean lessons in February. Her idea entirely. Yang Yu had used a phrase she didn't understand, and she demanded he translate it, then demanded he teach her the pronunciation, then found a beginner's program online and was progressing through it with the same focused intensity she brought to everything she decided mattered. He sat with her at the kitchen table on Sunday evenings and corrected her pronunciation with a patience I found almost unreasonable, given how demanding she could be as a student. She didn't accept correction without asking why. He always had an answer. She started keeping a notebook. In exchange, she appointed herself responsible for his ongoing education in her own linguistic landscape. She taught him phrases I hadn't heard since middle school, and several I was fairly sure she'd invented. He repeated them back with complete seriousness and deployed them in sentences that made her dissolve into laughter. Real laughter. The unguarded kind that arrives before you've decided to have it. His security team didn't know what to do with this development. I watched Soo-jin's face the first time it happened. I privately found it one of the more entertaining things I'd witnessed in recent memory. My mother had come around. That took longer than Nadia's acceptance, which I expected. My mother loves carefully. She reserves the full weight of it for people who've demonstrated they can hold it. She spent the first month watching Yang Yu with the quiet intensity of a woman who has seen her daughter hurt before and has not forgotten what that cost. She asked me questions I answered as fully as I could. She arranged a separate conversation with him. I wasn't present, and she had planned that deliberately. I respected the strategy, even as it made me slightly nervous. She told me afterward only that he had answered everything she asked without deflection, and that she had believed him. From my mother, that wasn't a small thing. She didn't say she approved. She said she believed him. Those are two different things, and the second one was the one that mattered. By March, she was giving him her unsolicited opinions about the parking situation near the hotel. He listened with complete seriousness, responded substantively. She decided he was real. The park was 3 blocks from our apartment. Close enough that Nadia could run ahead on the path without either of us losing sight of her. She did. Ran ahead, looped back, ran ahead again. With the energy of a child who'd been inside doing homework for 3 hours and needed to discharge it somewhere. She was in yellow today. She'd been choosing yellow lately, alongside the orange. Yang Yu had once told her, very seriously, that it was a good choice. She'd taken it as professional validation. It was a Sunday evening in late March. The light was doing what light does in early spring, staying longer than you expect, warm at the edges, the sky that particular shade of blue that feels like a breath held before the season commits. The path was quiet, damp from rain the night before. The trees on either side still bare, but with something just beginning at the ends of the branches, small and green and not quite ready. We were walking at the pace of people with nowhere to be. His hand was in mine. That had started in February, quietly, without announcement. He stopped at a bench near the eastern edge of the path. I recognized it. The same park. Roughly the same spot where we'd had our first real conversation after the hotel. Weeks after the gala. When I'd still been trying to figure out what category he belonged in. Failing. He reached into his coat pocket and brought out a small box. Flat. Matte gray. The kind that doesn't announce itself. He held it for a moment. Then opened it. Inside was a bracelet. Simple, elegant. A single strand of dark gold with a small detail at the clasp. A character I'd need Nadia to translate for me. Korean. Something he had decided privately and then had made into a permanent thing. Not a ring yet, he said. You're still building. I'm not going to interrupt that. I looked at the bracelet, then at him. But when you're ready, he said. I'm asking. Ahead on the path, Nadia made a sharp left at the fountain and looped, back toward us. Her yellow coat bright against the evening, running with the specific joy of a child who has no reason not to. She slowed when she saw us, clocked the box, clocked the bracelet, clocked whatever was on my face. And then, with the remarkable self-possession of a 9-year-old who understood more than she was supposed to, she turned back around and found something very interesting to investigate near the fountain. Yang Yu fastened the bracelet around my wrist. His hands were steady. They were always steady. The clasp closed with a small, clean sound. I looked at it, at the way it caught the last of the evening light, at the character at the clasp I couldn't read yet, but already felt the weight of. Then I looked at Nadia. Yellow coat, 2 puffs, library book inexplicably tucked under her arm even in a park. Running ahead on the path like the future was something you ran toward, not something you braced against. Yang Yu's hand found mine again, the way it always did, without ceremony. I'd spent a long time treating what came next like something to survive, building walls around my life and calling it strength. I thought needing no one meant I was strong. I was wrong. It just meant I was alone. It took one deliberate man, walking across a ballroom at an unhurried pace, straightening his tie before the storm, to show me the difference between a woman who endures and a woman who belongs. I wasn't bracing anymore. I was standing in a park in the early spring light, my daughter's voice carrying back to me through the warm air, the bracelet still warm on my wrist, the hand of a man who had been paying attention to me, quietly consistently, without needing credit for it, holding mine, not surviving, building, one deliberate, unhurried thing at a time. Subscribe to see how this unfolds, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I would love to say hello to you, just to know how far our story is going. Asterisk.